Hi, my name is Aliza Shatman. I am the president and co-founder of the Legal Accountability Project. We are a nonprofit that seeks to ensure that as many law clerks as possible have positive clerkship experiences while extending support and resources to those who do not. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal story and how I became involved in this work. I graduated from Washington University School of Law, or WashU, in 2019, and I dreamed of becoming a homicide prosecutor in the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. I decided to clerk in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, or DC Superior Court, because I knew that DC AUSAs appeared before DC Superior Court judges. Unfortunately, beginning just weeks into the clerkship, the judge for whom I clerked began to harass me and discriminate against me based on my gender. He would kick me out of the courtroom, telling me that I made him uncomfortable and he just felt more comfortable with my male co-clerk. He told me I was aggressive and nasty and a disappointment. The day I found out that I had passed the DC bar, so a big day in my life, he called me into his inner chambers, got in my face, and told me, "You're bossy." And I know bossy because my wife is bossy. And I was just devastated. I cried myself to sleep. I cried in the courthouse bathroom. I cried on the walk to work every morning. I wanted to be reassigned to a different judge for the remainder of the clerkship, but my courthouse did not have an employee dispute resolution or EDR plan in place at the time that would have enabled me to be reassigned. We eventually transitioned to remote work in March of 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. I moved back to Philadelphia to stay with my parents and work remotely. The judge basically ignored me for 6 weeks. My calls, texts, and emails went unanswered until finally he called me up one day and told me he was ending my clerkship early because I made him uncomfortable and lacked respect for him, but he didn't want to get into it. So I called DC Courts HR, and they told me there was nothing they could do because HR doesn't regulate judges, and that judges and law clerks have a unique relationship. And they asked me, didn't I know that I was an at-will employee? So it took me about a year to get back on my feet after that. I connected with another DC judge who directed me to the Commission on Judicial Disabilities and Tenure, the regulatory body for DC judges. I drafted a complaint in May of 2020, but decided to wait to file it until I'd secured a new job because I feared that the judge would retaliate against me. Eventually moved back to DC in June of 2021 after securing my dream job in the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. I accepted a position as a Special Assistant U.S. Attorney, or SAUSA, at the DC USAO. I was about 2 weeks into training when I received devastating news that altered the course of my life. I was told that the judge had made negative statements about me during my background investigation, that I would not be able to obtain a security clearance, and that my job offer was being revoked. So I went back to my judicial complaint, added some sections about the negative reference, which I hadn't yet seen but believed was gender-based, and filed that with the DC Commission on Judicial Disabilities and Tenure. A few days later, I got a call from the DC USAO extending an offer to interview for a different job with the office. That offer was also subsequently revoked based on the judge's same negative reference. I was 2 years into my legal career, and the judge seemed to have limitless power to destroy my reputation and ruin my career. I hired attorneys, and in the summer and fall of 2021, participated in the commission's investigation into the now former judge. We were several months into the investigation when I found out that the judge was already on administrative leave pending an investigation into other misconduct. At the time, he filed the negative reference about me with the USAO, but the USAO was not alerted of the circumstances surrounding the negative reference. I eventually saw the reference as a result of private settlement negotiations between my attorneys and the then judges, and it was outrageous and deeply, deeply misleading. But by that point, the damage had been done. In January of 2022, pursuant to the terms of our settlement agreement, The former judge issued a clarifying statement to the USAO, addressing some but not all the outrageous statements he'd made about me. But by then it was too late. The damage had been done, and I am pretty much blackballed from what I thought was my dream job in the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. I share my story for a couple reasons. I want law clerks who have faced or are currently facing mistreatment to know that they're not alone. And I receive messages from law clerks every day thanking me for sharing my story and then sharing theirs. For people watching this who think my story is particularly outrageous, my point is this type of mistreatment happens in courthouses across the country every day to law clerks who are suffering in silence, but who will probably never speak out. And I hope that by sharing my story and focusing on this issue full time, I can begin to change the conversation about judicial accountability and really make some desperately needed changes to protect the next generation of law clerks, because I don't want my story and my reality to be any other law clerk's reality.